Hi, Kinders. We're going to be writing in our blue journal again today, and we're going to be writing another narrative. So we're going to need to do our story hand. So remember the story hand, the first thing that for our thumb, the first finger we think about is who is in the story. The second thing we need to tell is where the story is happening, the setting, and then 1, 2 things that happen and how did we feel about it, right? All right, so I was been thinking, what story do I want to write today? And I was looking out my window and I have a tree in my backyard that I want to tell you about. So here's my story hand. So the story is about me, Marcus and Nick when they were in kindergarten. They were little and it was in my backyard. So the story is about Mrs. Cito, Marcus and Nick, my 2 sons, and it was in our backyard, so that tells you where. And we planted a little maple tree that they loved. Every day when they played in their backyard, they would go up to the tree and talk to the tree. And they named the tree Lulie. And Lulie grew up so big. And yesterday when I looked out the window, Lulie was so red and pretty that made me think of the story. And it made me feel love. Like my boys love the tree. The tree grew up strong and beautiful because it felt this love. So that's the story I want to tell. Last week when we were doing narratives, we talked about titles and how titles, when you read a title, it makes you want to listen to the story. So remember the last week's story was the missing cookie. So I made it sound like a mystery. So I've been trying to think what would be a good title for today's narrative. Well, let's start with the date. It's March 30th. So we do a date stamp up here on the top. 3-30th. 3 is the number that represents March. The day is the 30th, 2021. And I'm going to put a box around it, a rectangular box, so that it looks like a date stamp. And I'm going to keep thinking about the title. Sometimes when you can't think of a title for a story, by the time you finish writing the whole story, the title comes to you. So my story, I have to make sure I tell you who is in the story. So Marcus, Nick, and I were in our backyard planting a tree. So Marcus, Nick, and Mrs. Cito planted a tree in our backyard. So in this sentence, I told you who, remember who, story hand, and where, and what we're doing. So I told you 3 things already. It's Marcus, Nick, and Mrs. Cito. Those are who, where, backyard, and what are we doing? Planting the tree. So what happened to this tree? The tree grew and grew. Grew and grew. The boys named the tree Lulie. Lulie. Period. Oh, I'm not done. I ran out of room. What should I do? Great idea. I can just turn the page. But before I turn the page, I'm going to read my writing so I know where to start. Because sometimes when you turn the page, you forget what you wrote. Marcus, Nick, and Mrs. Cito planted a tree in our backyard. The tree grew and grew. The boys named the tree Lulie. Okay. The boys loved Lulie, and Lulie grew big and strong. how did we all feel? What do you think? What feelings did we have about Lulie? Did we feel love, excited, happy, sad, mad, surprised, frustrated, afraid, shocked, or sleepy? I think I'm going to say we feel loved. Lulie loves the boys and the boys love Lulie. I'm going to put a picture of Lulie on the Google slide. So if you want to see how big and red Lulie's leaves are, you can look on the slide. I'll put it on the side next to the YouTube video so you can see Lulie. So the boys are, so I'm going to divide them and do something interesting that you probably, so I'm dividing my picture into two parts. This is when the boys were little and we planted Lulie, and this will be Lulie now. So it's sort of like a before and after. So I'm gonna draw. So my boys were little then. I think Nick was 3 and Marcus was 5 because Marcus was in kindergarten. So draw Nick and Marcus. And they love playing in the backyard. I think they love playing in the backyard because they love dirt. And we bought a little tiny plant with just a couple leaves on it. It was really tiny. And we were in our backyard. So our backyard has fences in the back right here. And then we had a table over here and some chairs. Draw a chair. Chairs. My chairs are like kind of flat on this table. And then this is Mrs. Cito. And just so we know, so I'm gonna write Marcus. You know that one is Marcus, because labeling is really important. And I'm gonna write 5 years old. So you know that Marcus was little. And this was Nick, and he was 3 years old. And this is Lulie. Lulie was in a little planter. And then, so I'm gonna write, before. So this is a long time ago, before. And then I'm gonna write now. Now, Lulie is this super big tree with all these branches, and all her branches are filled with beautiful leaves. She's so pretty. And all the leaves are this really pretty red color. And then the fence is still outside. All right, I want to color. This is like, I think this is the closest red. All of Lulie's leaves are this red. She's so pretty in our backyard. I love looking at her. And then when we first bought Lulie, she was just a tiny little green plant. None of her leaves were red. Remember, if you want to see what Lulie looks like now, you can go back to the Google slide and you'll see a picture of her. I think I'm going to title this story Lulie, because it's all about, should be Lulie the tree. Lulie the tree. And I'll put some hearts on it because it's a story about love. I hope you enjoy writing this with me. I can't wait to see what you're going to write in your narrative. Narratives are so fun to read. They're like telling stories to your teacher or whoever you want to read your stories. Stories about you, things that you did, adventures that you went on, trees that you planted. So I can't wait to hear you read your narrative to us on Flipgrid Friday. Actually, this week, there's no school on Friday, so it's Flipgrid Thursday. So I can't wait for you to read your story to us on Flipgrid Thursday. Bye, Kinders.